Well, I'm Matthew Bell. I'm currently working at the International School of Estonia in Estonia, but I'm originally from Scotland and I've done some teaching there as well. So when I was first hearing about augmented reality, it was largely to do with like mathematics. Where I first heard of the technology we're talking about was through yourselves, through CleverBooks, and their use in creating three-dimensional models of shapes. So it was when I was just looking for a new way to engage students and to make them kind of think in 3 dimensions, like taking the paper examples, the flat kind of 3-dimensional representations, and bringing it more into something like tangible that they can look and almost feel, So when I first downloaded the app and looked at some of the shapes, it immediately became clear that the technology was fantastic. I loved looking at it. I loved seeing what was on offer there. I teach science and maths. I think one of the things that struck me when I started using the technology was how immersive and engaging it was. As soon as kids were able to, or as soon as students were able to look at a shape through the viewfinder, their first instinct was to play with it. Which to me, I love play-based learning. I love when kids just look at something and they just get so naturally curious about it that they want to learn about it. And I saw that immediately when I had the AR in front of them. They would pick up their iPad, they'd look at the shape, and suddenly it springs to life, and they're in, and they're going around, and they're trying to see what's happening. And before I could even explain what the task was to them, they'd already figured out what I wanted them to do and started doing it, just naturally, just by play. So I think that's one of the big strengths of AR is this kind of, it gives a tangible feeling to something that's inherently a little bit untangible or intangible. That we see a flat drawing of, like a cuboid or a triangular prism, then suddenly when it pops out of the page or it kind of appears in real life and you can look around at it, it becomes so much more. And it really helped them engage with this idea and see, how 2D can become 3D. Particularly, I think it's really good for visual learners, people who benefit from seeing an example. I know that a lot of the students I have that are looking at things like surface area often struggle with the idea of translating what they know in 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions. So, for example, we were doing just area of shapes, and everyone was like, yeah, this is fine, we've got this, it's easy. And then as soon as I introduced the concept of surface area, the area of surfaces in 3 dimensions, everyone was like, no, what's this? This is completely foreign, what's going on? And it wasn't until we had a little look and I brought the app in and I thought, if I just press this button, here's the 3D shape, it unfolds, you see the 2D net that makes up the 3D shape. Suddenly, light bulbs. Oh, that's all it is. It's so nice to see these moments of suddenly just getting it. These light bulb moments I like to look at. So for me, it was really good for visual learners. Another thing I experienced is because we're an international school, we have a lot of students that come from various different backgrounds whose first language isn't always English. So one of the big benefits for me was that these students were really, really engaged as well, because it's the same thing. It's visual. You look at it and you get it. The concept is there for the taking. I didn't need to explain things. Usually I would spend a few more minutes going around differentiating properly, making sure that the instructions were clear or breaking a task down into smaller chunks for these students. But as soon as they saw the 3-dimensional representation, as soon as they saw it in real life with this augmented reality, they just sprung straight to it and had an immediate understanding of what was put in front of them. So I think those are some of the biggest points for me, is just the kind of the engagement, the accessibility, and just generally the kind of light bulb moment thing, just the concept, the power of imparting a concept to someone.
And which age group did you test application with?
So this application I tested with students 12-ish. It wasn't the primary sector that the app was really aimed at, but that being said, these concepts are powerful. It doesn't matter where they're applied so long as they're applied with a context, and that's what I'm saying when it comes to calculating surface area or even more complex things. For example, when we were looking at calculating the angle between certain vertices and planes for later on in maths applications, it was even useful then to look at something in 3D and see what's that point connected to this point. It helps a lot to have that. So although it wasn't quite the age it was aimed at. I found use for this throughout the curriculum.